Captain Maya Rios gripped the armrests of her command chair, the hum of the shuttle's engines vibrating through her bones as they sliced through the void toward the Galactic Council's core station. The corridor ahead was a gauntlet of enforcer drones and patrol fleets, their sleek obsidian hulls glinting under the artificial starlight of the relay beacons. Her task force, 3 corvettes and a single frigate, the UNS Vanguard, flanked the shuttle like wary hounds, weapons cold but ready. Intel from the first contact skirmish had painted a grim picture. The Council didn't negotiate, they subsumed. Species that resisted ended up as cautionary holograms, their worlds reduced to asteroid fields. "Captain," her XO, Lieutenant Reyes, said from the tactical console, her voice steady but edged with the strain of holding formation in alien traffic. "Briefing packets updated. Councils pacified over 200 systems in the last millennium. Defiant ones? 90% extinction rate. They call it stabilization." Maya nodded, eyes fixed on the viewport where the core station loomed, a colossal ring of alloy and energy shields, orbiting a captured black hole that warped space around it like a predator's maw. Her fleet was a speck against it, humanity's boldest outreach or its first grave. She thought of her brother, Elias, back on the habitat rings of New Cairo, his messages full of that easy optimism she envied. One wrong word here and reprisals could rain down on places like his. "Keep shields modulated to their specs," she ordered. "No surprises. We're guests, not invaders." The shuttle docked with a resonant clang, and Maya straightened her uniform, the weight of her sidearm a familiar anchor. Her delegation, engineers, linguists, a pair of Marines, filed out into the cavernous hangar, met by a phalanx of council enforcers, towering insectoid krell, with energy lances humming at port arms. No words, just a silent escort through corridors lined with murals of conquered stars, the air thick with the ozone tang of overkill security. In the shadowed nerve center of the station, Archon Vesh Takar watched the human approach on a bank of holoscreens, his elongated fingers steepled beneath his chin. The chamber around him pulsed with the quiet efficiency of his staff. Analysts from a dozen subjugated races, their eyes downcast. Vesh's species, the Vor, prized precision above all. Emotion was a flaw to be excised. These humans, though barbaric upstarts from a backwater arm, had already disrupted patrols with their erratic maneuvers. He would break them methodically. "Initiate the reception protocol," Vesh said, his voice a silken rasp over the comms. "Broadcast the archive. Let them see the cost of defiance." The screens flickered to life across the human delegation's path. Visions of shattered worlds, orbital bombardments reducing verdant planets to glowing craters, fleets vaporized in synchronized salvos. Alien screams echoed faintly from the projections, a symphony of submission. Vesh leaned back, anticipating the flinch, the plea. Fear was the Council's greatest architect. It built empires without a single bolt. Maya's team halted in an antechamber as the holograms bloomed around them, the air shimmering with reconstructed horrors. A Marine beside her swallowed hard, but Maya kept her face neutral, cataloging the details. The precision strikes, the lack of mercy. It was war, plain and scarred, like Earth's own history. "Steady," she murmured. "This is theater. They want us rattled." Reyes glanced at her, doubt flickering. "Captain, if that's their baseline—" "It's why we're here," Maya replied, forcing calm into her voice. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Deeper in the station, Admiral Hakim Al-Nasser paced the secure conference room aboard the Vanguard, his reflection ghosting across the bulkhead screens. The link to Maya's shuttle was encrypted, but tension crackled like static. Hakim's fleet hung in holding pattern outside the corridor, a coiled spring of human ingenuity, railguns, drone swarms, adaptive shields forged in Earth's unification fires. But this wasn't a battlefield. It was a den of predators. Maya's face appeared on the hololink, her expression taut. "Admiral, we're en route to the session. Enforcers are escorting." Hakim stopped pacing, his dark eyes sharp. "Good. Now about posture. We bow to no one, but deference buys time. Show strength without the snarl. Maya crossed her arms, the shuttle's confines making her feel pinned. Deference? After those holograms? They'll smell weakness. Humanity didn't unify by groveling. And we won't survive by poking the hornet's nest, Hakim shot back, his voice gravelly from years of command. He thought of his daughter, Aisha, her peace banners waving in the riots before the chemstorms took her. He'd sworn no more needless blood, but these aliens tested that vow. The councils absorbed species by making examples. We play polite, assess their fractures, then we escalate if needed. Maya hesitated, the weight of her crews pressing on her. Submission chafed, but rash defiance could doom Elias's habitat. Fine, measured respect, but if they push vassalage, I won't kneel. Hakim nodded, a ghost of approval in his eyes. That's the line. Hold it. As the conference cut, a new alert pinged Maya's console. Delegation update. Envoy Jonah Park added last minute from the cultural wing. She frowned. A comedian? In this? Jonah slipped into the shuttle's rear compartment minutes later, his civilian suit rumpled, a tablet clutched like a shield. He flashed a grin that didn't reach his eyes, the kind honed from stages back on Luna colonies. Captain Rios, Jonah Park, at your service. Apparently, I'm the funny one now. Maya eyed him warily as he strapped in. This isn't a variety show, Envoy. The Council's broadcasting live to the galaxy. One slip... Exactly, Jonah interrupted, leaning forward with that impulsive spark. Fear's their script. We rewrite with a punchline. I've got memes prepped, subtle overlays for the feed. Make 'em laugh, and the mystique crumbles. She wanted to dismiss it, humor against annihilation. But his eyes held a haunted edge, the rush of crowds masking deeper irrelevance fears. Fine, but you follow my lead. No ad-libs that start a war. Jonah's grin widened. Wouldn't dream of it, yet. The formal session chamber was a vast amphitheater of tiered seats, alien delegates murmuring in a babel of tongues, the air heavy with translated pheromones and suspicion. Maya took her place at the central dais. Jonah at her side with his broadcast rig, Hakim's fleet a silent backup via neural link. Archon Vesh presided from the elevated throne, his form elongated and severe, flanked by enforcers. Citizens of the emergent polity known as humanity, Vesh intoned, his words booming through amplifiers. The holoscreens reignited, subtler now, chains of subjugated worlds, tribute fleets crawling in obeisance. The Galactic Council extends invitation to integration, vassalage ensures stability, refusal invites correction. The veiled ultimatum hung, a blade poised. Delegates leaned forward, expecting the break. Maya met Vesh's gaze, her pulse steady despite the knot in her gut. Deference or defiance? Elias's face flashed in her mind. She chose the edge. Archon Vesh, we appreciate the history lesson. Impressive fireworks. But humanity's seen our share of shattered worlds, ours and others. We're here to talk partnership, not play servant. After all, who needs fear when respect works just fine? A ripple spread through the chamber. Gasps from the timid, intrigued murmurs from the fringes. Jonah's fingers flew over his tablet, seeding the response into the live feed with a viral twist. A subtle overlay of a human cartoon, a cartoonish alien overlord tripping over its own robes. It bloomed across networks, uncensored, laughter bubbling in alien forums. Vesh's mandibles clicked faintly, irritation veiled, but Maya saw the fracture, pride stung. From her mid-tier seat, Counselor Lyrasil watched, her scaled skin prickling under the chamber's lights. Her species, the Silari, had bent long ago, her homeworld's oceans poisoned as lesson. She despised the terror, but rebellion meant extinction. For her lover, Kale, waiting in the underlevels with their hidden descent network. Humanity's words hit like a forbidden melody, unshaken, laced with that sardonic bite. No fear, just mockery. She glanced at the delegates, the Krell enforcer's grip tightening, a avian trader's beak parting in what might be a smile. Intrigued shock, not outrage. Lyra's console hummed, She archived the feed discreetly, routing it to encrypted channels. Leverage, perhaps. Her conscience twisted. Survival or spark. For now, she watched, heart pounding. The standoff stretched, Vesh's probes scanning Maya's reactions, probing for cracks. Tension coiled like a spring, enforcers shifting. Finally, Vesh raised a claw. Humanity is granted probationary membership. Terms: tribute fleets, oversight garrisons, full data sovereignty ceded. Compliance ensures prosperity. Punitive chains wrapped in silk. Maya inclined her head, measured respect, while Jonah's overlays kept circulating, human irreverence seeding doubt. The session adjourned amid uneasy murmurs, the delegation escorted out under watchful eyes. In his private sanctum, Vesh dismissed his aides, the chamber sealing with a hiss. The human's response replayed on his personal display, that viral cartoon mocking his authority. Ridicule, a primitive tool, yet it spread like a mimetic virus, eroding the fear that held the council intact. His pride burned. Stability demanded correction. Deploy the shadow probes, he ordered his covert liaison, a shadowy operative from the fringes. Manufacture a crisis, public, undeniable, force them back to fear. The liaison nodded, vanishing into the vents. Target, the human fleet. Maya's task force, isolated in the corridor, would feel the pressure first. A fabricated distress signal, an accidental enforcer incursion. Let them scramble, let the galaxy see humans bend. Maya felt the shift as her shuttle undocked, the Vanguard's sensors lighting up with anomalous readings. Something was coming, and her choice. Maya gripped the armrests of her shuttle seat as the docking clamps released with a dull thunk, the Vanguard's hull vibrating faintly beneath her. The viewscreen flickered with sensor data, irregular energy spikes blooming across the sector like distant fireworks. Her comms officer's voice crackled through the link. Captain, it's not hostile signatures. Looks like a broadcast wave. Origin Earth. Massive reach, blanketing neutral channels. She exhaled, tension easing from her shoulders but not vanishing. The anomalous readings weren't an attack. They were words. Human words. Probably Jonah's doing. Maya tapped her console, pulling up the feed. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, carrying her back toward the fleet's rendezvous point, but her eyes stayed locked on the screen. There he was, Jonah Park, beaming from a makeshift studio on Earth's orbital hub. His face split in that irreverent grin that made her want to throttle him half the time. Behind him, holographic overlays mocked the Council's latest rite of submission, that pompous ceremony where lesser species knelt before towering effigies of the Archons, symbols of eternal dread. Jonah had twisted it into a farce, cartoonish puppets of Vesh Takar flailing comically as fear rays backfired into pies to the face, soundtracked by exaggerated alien wails turned into laugh tracks. "See, folks," Jonah said, leaning into the camera with exaggerated sincerity. "The Council's got this whole terror shtick down pat. But what if we flip the script? What if their big bad boogeyman trips over his own cape?" The broadcast cut to edited clips of historical council enforcements, slowed to slapstick speeds, drones stumbling like drunks, orbital strikes fizzling into harmless sparks. Billions watched. Alien viewers from subjugated worlds, flickering in on pirated feeds, their reactions scrolling in real time. Hesitant chuckles from Krell traders, outright guffaws from Zalari exiles. Maya's jaw tightened. Jonah was playing with fire, turning the Council's sacred intimidation into a galactic punchline. Competent, undeniably, but the fallout would land on her deck. Aboard the Vanguard, her bridge crew was already buzzing when she strode in 20 minutes later. "Captain," Ensign Rao said, saluting crisply, "Earth commands hailing. They want your take on the broadcast." "Tell them it's done," Maya replied, sinking into her command chair. "And monitor council chatter. If Vesh bites, it'll be swift." She didn't have to wait long. Within hours, encrypted bursts lit up the net, council fleets mobilizing towards Elvara, a dusty fringe world allied loosely with humanity's exploratory outposts. Minor player, but symbolic. Home to a coalition of insectoid miners who'd petitioned Earth for tech trades. Vesh's voice echoed in the intercepted orders, cold as void. Isolate and demonstrate. Let the galaxy witness the cost of human insolence. Broadcast every ration denied, every light dimmed. Maya watched the holomap as Council battleships lumbered into position, encircling Zelvara like a noose. Punitive blockade, classic Vesh, methodical cruelty masked as necessity. He blamed the broadcast, of course, pinning the insolence on humanity's doorstep. Supplies would choke off. Food synthesizers, Atmos scrubbers, the basics that kept fragile colonies breathing. Slow strangulation, televised for maximum dread. Her orders from Hakim were clear. Observe, do not engage. Earth governments, still raw from unification scars, demanded caution, no provoking the behemoth. But Maya stared at the map, tracing the blockade's gaps. Zelvara's people weren't soldiers, they were workers, families scraping ore for a shot at independence. Letting them starve for Jonah's joke? That wasn't deterrence, that was complicity. She keyed her secure line to the Fleet Logistics Wing. Prep the humanitarian flotilla, medical bays, nutrient packs, full load. We're invoking Article 47, neutral relief under observer protocols. Rao's eyes widened. Captain, that's a loophole. Council security codes bar non-allied transit through their corridors. Exactly why it's legal, Maya said, her voice steady despite the knot in her gut. Defying orders meant risking her command, her crew, but her brother Elias's face flashed in her mind, smiling from a habitat vid, oblivious to the shadows closing in. If the Council hit soft targets to make a point, how long before they reached him? She couldn't save everyone, but she could save these people, or die trying. The flotilla launched at dawn cycle, 6 sleek human freighters escorted by a pair of corvettes, Vanguard's auxiliaries nimble against the Council's hulking dreadnoughts. Maya rode point on the lead ship, the Reliant, her tactical display pulsing with threats. As they approached the outer ring, a Council cruiser hailed, "Human vessels, this sector is restricted. Reverse course or face interdiction." "Relief mission under Galactic Accord Article 47, Maya transmitted back, calm as polished steel. "We're carrying no weapons, only aid for Zelvara civilians. Your blockade doesn't apply to humanitarian transit." Static, then a deeper voice, likely a sub-Archon. "The Archon decrees otherwise. Your provocation demands example." Maya's fingers hovered over the evasion protocols. "We're proceeding. Fire if you must, but the galaxy's watching." She cut the line, heart pounding. The Reliance engines flared, weaving through sensor shadows the Council ships couldn't match. Human tech, born of asteroid skirmishes back home, agile where the aliens relied on brute mass. Deep in the Council's shadowed spires, Lyra Sael paced her chamber, the weight of her world's subjugation pressing like damp fog. The broadcast had rippled through her networks, whispers of laughter in places where only fear had dwelt. Humanity's mockery wasn't just noise, it was a crack in the facade. Vesh's blockade was his retort, but if it failed, if humans slipped through, it could embolden the quiet dissenters like her. She couldn't act openly. Her lover, Kale, back on her homeworld, depended on her patronage to shield their family from purges, but conscience gnawed, a fracture widening. Accessing her secure terminal, Lyra pulled up the blockade schematics, corridor maps, patrol rotations, blind spots in the sensor net where Zelvara's asteroid belts masked approach vectors, risky to leak, but if Maya succeeded, the Council's aura shattered without Lyra's hand visible. She routed the data through anonymous relays, bouncing it to human channels. "For the fracture," she murmured, deleting traces, gambling everything on strangers who laughed at terror. If exposed, her world burned, but doing nothing, that doom came slower, surer. Maya's console chimed as the data packet arrived, unsigned but precise, routes threading the blockade like veins, spots where Council patrols lagged. She cross-checked against her nav charts. It was gold. "Helm, adjust course to Vector 7 Alpha, evasive pattern delta." The Reliant banked sharply, the flotilla following in a tight diamond formation. Council sensors pinged, but the human ships danced, thrust bursts and micro-jumps exploiting the aliens' sluggish targeting locks. A warning shot lanced past, plasma grazing the void. Maya's breath caught, but she kept her voice level. Maintain formation, we're not here to fight. The corvettes peeled off in feints, drawing fire while the freighters punched through a blind spot. Zelvara's orbit loomed, its habitats twinkling like fireflies against the blockade's iron ring. Brinkmanship stretched taut. Council battleships lumbered to intercept, their massive guns swiveling, but the humans ran rings around them, literal loops. Sensor ghosts multiplying as decoy drones deployed. One freighter took a glancing hit, hull venting atmosphere, but Maya ordered medevac drones across the gap. No fatalities, but the cost etched into her. Crew shaken, supplies delayed. Back on Earth, Jonah's team pounced. Raw sensor feeds from the flotilla streamed in, and they sliced them into reels. Human ships zipping like gnats around ponderous council behemoths, set to upbeat chiptune mockery. Watch the big scary fleet chase its tail, Jonah narrated in the viral cut, adding cartoon exhaust trails and pratfall sound effects. Billions more tuned in, the slapstick spreading like a virus. Admiral Hakim al-Nasser watched the feeds from his flagship, the Olympus, his lined face etched deeper by worry. Earth's councils bombarded him. Pull back. Don't escalate. His daughter's voice echoed in memory, her plea for peace amid the unification fires. He'd vowed no needless wars, but Maya's gambit teetered on the edge. Admiral, his XO said, we could reinforce with strike wings. End this quick. Hakim shook his head, the weight of command settling heavier. Overwhelm them and humanity looked the aggressor. Expansionist upstarts, not principled defenders. No, authorized defensive posture only, ROE. Protect the flotilla, no pursuits, no first strikes. Let the galaxy see we're here to help, not conquer. The order rippled out, sacrificing tactical edge for image. Maya acknowledged it mid-maneuver, a flicker of relief cutting her tension, but the cost bit. A corvette's engines fried under sustained fire, limping home crewed by the wounded. The turning point came not in lasers, but in laughter. As the flotilla docked with Zelvara, unloading crates under cheering miners' lights, the memes metastasized. Subject races, silent for cycles, aped the human format. Vesh's blockade rendered as a bumbling circus, council ships tripping over asteroid bananas. Krell artisans broadcast their own satires. Zalari poets turned enforcer threats into limericks. The political dam broke. Neutral envoys decried the impotent siege, and even council allies wavered, their fear eroding under ridicule. Vesh seethed in his command nexus, hollows flickering with the mockery's spread. Stability demanded withdrawal. The blockade had become a joke, not a lesson. Strategic redeployment, he ordered curtly, ships peeling away under cover of false sensor flares. But humiliation burned, a rigid pride cracking. Humanity's unpredictability, humor as weapon, undermined everything. In the dim glow of his sanctum, Vesh activated a private channel. Initiate Operation Thorn. Target the Rios habitat. Civilian, unprotected. In the dim glow of his sanctum, Vesh activated a private channel. Initiate Operation Thorn. Target the Rios habitat. Civilian, unprotected. The order hung in the air like a blade unsheathed. On the other end, a shadowed figure nodded, the feed cutting to static. Vesh leaned back, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the holographic star maps. Stability demanded precision. This Rios woman had already frayed the edges of control, with her species infuriating barbs. A subtle reminder, nothing traceable, would realign her focus. Far across the void, in the Sargasso habitat's central core, alarms blared without warning. Dr. Elias Rios wiped sweat from his brow, staring at the flickering diagnostics panel. The old colony wheels spun lazily in the black, a patchwork of human ingenuity clinging to asteroid rock. Life support hummed as it always had, a patchwork of recycled air and hydroponic filters sustaining 10,000 souls. Elias, Maya's younger brother by 8 years, was elbow-deep in a maintenance conduit when the first tremor hit. Containment breach in Sector 7. The AI voice droned, calm as ever. Oxygen levels dropping. Evacuate non-essentials. Elias yanked his hand free, tools clattering. Sector 7, that was the primary recycler. Faulty seals? No, the reading spiked too fast, like a vein severed clean. He patched into the comms. Engineering to command. This isn't a glitch. Patterns match sabotage. Get the outer rings sealed. Panic rippled through the habitat like a wave. Bulkheads groaned as they slammed shut, trapping families in safer zones while others scrambled for emergency pods. In the shadows of the outer hull, sleek Council Black Ops vessels, cloaked as debris, fired micro-torpedoes laced with corrosive nanites. The strikes were surgical, eating through conduits without breaching the skin. Plausible deniability, a systems fault in an aging human relic. By the time anyone traced it, the message would have landed. Aboard the UNS Vanguard, Maya Rios gripped the armrests of her command chair, the bridge lights casting harsh shadows on her face. The fleet's weekly status ping from Sargasso had just flatlined. Her stomach twisted. Not the professional dread of a captain, but something raw. Elias, he was down there, buried in the guts of that spinning tomb, probably cursing the universe as he fought to hold it together. "Captain," Lieutenant Chen said, her voice steady but eyes wide. "Sargasso's broadcasting a distress. Life support critical. They're requesting immediate aid." Maya's jaw tightened. Orders were clear. Maintain formation en route to the Council Summit. Admiral Hakim's directive rang in her mind. Deterrence through presence, not reckless diversions. But Elias's last message, a casual vid call joking about babysitting the stars, flashed unbidden. She couldn't leave him to choke in the dark. "Helm, plot intercept course for Sargasso, maximum burn. Comms, signal the Admiral, priority override for humanitarian assist." Chen hesitated. "Ma'am, that's against protocol. Fleet command—" "Now, Lieutenant." Maya's voice was ice, but her knuckles whitened on the console. The Vanguard's engines thrummed to life, the ship veering from the formation like a predator breaking ranks. In the Admiral's ready room aboard the UNS Resolve, Hakim al-Nasser watched the tactical display with a scowl. Maya's flagship was peeling off, a bright arrow slicing toward the habitat's coordinates. He rubbed the faded tattoo on his forearm, a peace dove inked for his daughter, lost to a border skirmish she'd tried to end. Vows like that felt heavier in moments like this. "She's gone rogue," his XO muttered. "Court-martial material, sir." Hakim's gaze lingered on the plot. Sargasso was civilian, unprotected. Easy prey if the Council wanted to send a message. Maya's deviation was insubordinate, but covering it meant lying on official logs, risking his own neck. He thought of the fleets under his command, the fragile unity humanity had forged from its own wars. One captain's grief could unravel it all. "Amend the logs," he said finally, voice gravelly. Vanguard was on a scheduled patrol variant, no mention of deviation. "And get a response team prepped, we're backing her play." The XOs saluted, but doubt lingered in the air. Hakim turned back to the display, the weight of choices settling like dust after a blast. On a cramped auxiliary deck of the Vanguard, Jonah Park hunched over a jury-rigged broadcast rig, fingers flying across the interface. The habitat's distress feed looped on his secondary screen, flashing lights, muffled screams, the cold math of failing oxygen. Maya's ship was en route, but that wouldn't be enough. Not against the Council's shadow games. He hit record, his face filling the frame, sharp features, a comedian's easy grin masking the adrenaline spike. "Galactic viewers, this is Jonah Park, humanity's unofficial hype man. We've got a crisis at Sargasso habitat. Our people suffocating because someone somewhere decided oops was a strategy. Life support's tanking, and guess who's got the tech to fix it but won't? Yeah, you know who." He leaned in, eyes locking on the lens. "If this is just a fault, fine, help us out. But if it's sabotage, Council fingers all over it, then we're not begging, we're calling bullshit." The insinuation hung, sharp as a knife. Jonah killed the feed and hit transmit, lived to every open channel, human and alien alike. Outrage would spread like fire, but if he was wrong, humanity's word became vapor. His pulse raced. The rush of the spotlight was addictive, but this time it might burn them all. In the shadowed vaults of the council's private chamber, Lyra Sile paced, her iridescent scales flushing with suppressed fury. The chamber's walls pulsed with encrypted data streams, but her focus was on the intercepted feed from Sargasso. Civilians, helpless, gasping. Vesh's doing, she knew it in her bones. The man, no, the Archon, sat unmoved at the obsidian table, reviewing projections. "This is barbarism," she hissed, slamming a datapad down. "Targeting non-combatants? Disguising it as failure. You've crossed into atrocity, Vesh." He didn't look up, his voice a measured blade. "Atrocity is chaos without order, counselor. Humanity's mockery erodes our foundation. This adjustment reminds them of consequences." Lyra's tendrils quivered. Her homeworld, subjugated generations ago, still bore the scars of similar adjustments. She thought of her lover, waiting in the shadowed spires of Elandra Prime, trusting her to navigate this without inviting reprisal. But silence now would doom more than one habitat. "Interfere and you force my hand," Vesh continued, finally meeting her gaze. His eyes were voids. "Your world's fragile peace relies on our goodwill. One whisper of dissent and Elandra burns. Not as fault, as lesson." The threat landed like a physical blow. Lyra straightened, conscience fracturing further. She nodded curtly and left, the chamber door sealing behind her with a finality that echoed her isolation. The Vanguard docked amid chaos, its shuttles ferrying engineers into Sargasso's breached core. Maya led the team personally, breather mask fogging with her breaths as she navigated the dim, acrid corridors. Alarms wailed, red lights strobing over panicked faces. Elias's last position, Engineering Bay 3. "Reactors inbound," she barked into her comm. Human techs hauled portable fusion units, cobbled from fleet spares humming with unstable power. They jury-rigged them into the main grid, sparks flying as seals fused. Oxygen levels stabilized in patches, bulkheads held against the partial collapse. But not everywhere. A shudder rocked the habitat. Section 12 buckled, venting atmosphere in a silent scream. Maya sprinted toward it, but the breach swallowed screams whole. Reports flooded in, hundreds lost, bodies frozen in the void. Elias's signal flatlined amid the debris. She found his station later, a crumpled form amid twisted metal. His face, peaceful in death, stared at the stars he'd loved to fix. Maya's knees buckled. Grief hit like decompression, raw, airless. She touched his hand, cold already, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Eli, I was too slow." Back aboard the Vanguard, the bridge felt like a tomb. Jonah waited in the comms alcove, his usual quips silenced by the weight in her eyes. "Captain, the broadcast. We need your voice. Make it count." Maya nodded, throat tight. She stepped to the recorder, face haggard but unyielding. "This is Captain Maya Rios. The council calls us primitives, but today they murdered my brother and hundreds like him. Cowards hide behind deniability, but we see you. Humanity doesn't break. We laugh at your fear and we'll bury it." She signed off, the words turning her loss into shrapnel. Grief fueled defiance. She knew it would spread, viral and unforgiving. Across the galaxy, the message ignited. Feeds from Sargasso's ruins. Humans and aliens weeping amid twisted wreckage merged with Jonah's edits. Council broadcasts of stern warnings overlaid with cartoonish pratfalls. Vesh's face morphed into a bumbling tyrant, slipping on his own threats. Laughter erupted on fringe worlds, once cowed colonies. The council's mystique cracked, fear curdling into scorn. Protests flared on allied stations. Even subjugated species shared the clips, whispering of rebellion. In his sanctum, Vesh watched the tide turn, his composure fracturing, public fear, his greatest tool, twisted into ridicule. He activated the emergency council line. "I require war powers, immediate, or this just consumes us all." Aboard the Resolve, Hakim's comm chimed with high command. Maya's face appeared on split screen, her eyes still shadowed by loss. "Captain Rios," the Admiral's superior intoned, voice like grinding stone, "your actions saved lives, but the backlash escalates. Rein in Park's ridicule campaign. Pull back the broadcasts, or we face total war. Humanity might not survive it." Maya met Hakim's gaze across the link. The choice, a noose tightening. Duty or defiance. The galaxy watched, and scorn's edge cut both ways. Maya held Hakim's gaze across the flickering hololink, the Admiral's eyes like polished obsidian, unyielding. The bridge around her hummed with restrained tension, her crew at stations, fingers hovering over controls, waiting for the word that could ignite everything. Duty or defiance? The question clawed at her gut, a familiar ache from too many battlefields on Earth, where one wrong call meant graves. The galaxy watched now not just admirals and envoys, but every species tuned to the feeds, and scorn's edge cut both ways, sharp enough to draw blood from the mighty, but it could turn on you just as quick. Hakim broke the silence first, his voice a low rumble through the static. "Captain Rios, your task force is greenlit. But this isn't about firepower, it's narrative. Get Jonah's people inside those nodes. Make the Council choke on their own silence." She nodded, the noose loosening just enough to breathe. "Understood, Admiral. We'll thread the needle." The link severed, and Maya turned to her XO, Lieutenant Chen, whose face was a mask of calculated calm. "Plot the jump to the outer relay cluster. Silent running. No pings until we're in position." As the Endeavor shuddered into slipspace, Maya allowed herself a glance at the tactical overlay. Council territory loomed like a web of iron spines, broadcast hubs pulsing at the nexus points. Hakim's War Council had laid it out hours ago. The Council's emergency edict, broadcast galaxy-wide, handed Archon Vesh sweeping powers. Seize media channels. Deploy psychological weapons, neural dampeners, mimetic viruses, anything to rewrite the story. Narrative control was the new battlefield, as vital as space lanes, because fear only worked if you owned the telling of it. Maya's mind raced through contingencies. Her brother Thomas was back on the habitat ring, one of those fragile civilian wheels the Council could squeeze like a vice if this went south. She pushed the thought down, focusing on the mission. Jonah's information offensive wasn't just broadcasts, it was a scalpel to the Council's throat, slicing away their aura of inevitability. Hours later, in the dim glow of the briefing room aboard the Vanguard, Jonah Park paced like a caged performer, his grin too wide, eyes alight with the buzz of it all. The War Council had dispersed, but he'd lingered, cornering Maya with that infectious energy that made her want to both laugh and throttle him. Hakim had already tasked her with the strike: lead a small group, 3 corvettes and her own frigate, slip in quiet, hijack the nodes for his uplink. Not a shot fired if they could help it. But Jonah had ideas, always ideas, and now he was pitching one that twisted her stomach. "Picture this," he said, waving a tablet that projected a holographic Vesh, the Archon's stern face morphing into a clownish stutter. Deepfake him denying the edict he just signed. "No, folks. Psychological weapons? That's so last cycle. We splice it into the feeds from the hub. Instant chaos. The galaxy sees the Emperor without clothes, laughing all the way." Maya leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed, the hum of the ship a steady pulse in her ears. Jonah's rising celebrity had hit like a supernova. Memes of his last broadcast, Council drones tripping over their own grav boots, were rippling through neutral worlds. He thrived on it, that rush, but this? Fabricating lies crossed her line, the one she'd drawn in blood during Earth's proxy wars. Truth was the only weapon that didn't poison the hand holding it. "Jonah, that's a deepfake. We don't lie our way to credibility. The Council already calls us primitive spinning tales. You give them that, and it sticks." He stopped pacing, his grin fading into something sharper, almost pleading. "Maya, come on. It's satire with teeth. Vesh is seizing channels to bury us. Turnabout's fair play. One push and the ridicule snowballs. Worlds start questioning everything." She met his eyes, seeing the flaw there. the comedian's itch for the spotlight, the fear of fading into the Admiral's shadow. Her own doubt gnawed. Duty demanded precision, but defiance whispered that the council played dirtier every day. Tomas's face flashed in her mind, his last message joking about council hospitality. If this stunt won allies, saved habitats... No. She shook her head. We hit the hub, uplink the real stuff. Blunders, leaks, satire on top. No fakes. That's the line, Jonah. Cross it, and we're no better than them. He deflated, but nodded, the spark dimming. Fine. Real, it is. But if we lose the narrative, don't blame the messenger. As Maya left the room, the weight settled heavier. The galaxy wasn't a stage. It was a minefield, and Jonah's humor was the match. Far across the void, in the shadowed spires of the Council's core citadel, Lyra Sael watched the edict's passage from her alcove, the chamber's vast dome echoing with the drone of approvals. Archon Vesh stood at the podium, his form a silhouette of unyielding chitin, voice cutting like a blade. To preserve order, I am granted authority over all disseminatory vectors. Psychological countermeasures will ensure compliance. The other counselors murmured assent, their fear a palpable fog. Lyra's tendrils twitched, hidden beneath her robes. She'd voted yes, of course. Open defiance meant annihilation for her homeworld, the verdant rings of Illyria, long chained by the Council's terror. But inside, revulsion churned. Humanity's broadcasts had cracked something in her, their irreverent jabs exposing the rot. Laughter as rebellion. It fascinated, terrified. Her calm buzzed privately. Kale, her lover back on Illyria, his message laced with worry. The memes are everywhere. People whispering, "Are you safe?" She typed back quickly, "Always. Stay low." But suspicion laced his words now, the divided loyalties she'd hidden, fraying the bond. Kyle was her anchor, a quiet engineer who'd never asked for politics, but her leaks to human channels, subtle data drips, risked him most. Tonight, she crossed the line fully. In the relay station's underlevels, away from patrols, Lyra accessed the backdoor protocols, her fingers dancing over the console. A vulnerability in the hub's firewall, one she'd planted cycles ago as a hedge against the Council's excesses. Now for Maya Rios's team. Treason, raw and irrevocable. If caught, Illyria burned, Kale with it. But as the code uploaded, a thrill cut through the fear, humanity's defiance mirroring her own buried spark. She sealed the access, heart pounding, and slipped away, the station's hum mocking her fragile gamble. Maya's strike group emerged from slipspace on the edge of the cluster, sensors painting the void in cold blues. The communications hub floated ahead, a spindly lattice of antennae and shield emitters, guarded by a council picket, 2 destroyers angular and bristling. Her escorts flanked, the Falcon and Sparrow, nimble corvettes under Captains Reyes and Tariq. "Close formation," she ordered over the tight beam. "We skim the defenses. EMP burst on my mark." Jonah's team preps the uplink. The clash came swift. No grand fleet battle, but a knife fight in the dark. Council alarms wailed as the picket pivoted, plasma lances charging. Maya gripped her command chair, the ship bucking under evasive thrusts. "Reyes, draw fire left. Tariq, sync with me on the pass." The Falcon darted in, decoys blooming like fireworks, pulling one destroyer off course. Maya pushed the Endeavor into a slingshot arc, close enough to taste the static on her tongue. "Mark!" Bursts of electromagnetic fury lanced out, frying shield nodes in a cascade of sparks. The hub's defenses flickered, minimal casualties. Council drones tumbling lifeless, but no biosigns lost on their side. Then the Sparrow screamed across the comms. "Incoming boarders! Wait, no! Lance hit!" Tariq's voice cut off in static. Maya watched in horror as the corvette's hull vented atmosphere, a council counterstrike shearing through its flank. Debris bloomed, silent and final. Crew dead, 40 souls gone in a blink. Her order had bought the window, but the cost etched into her like shrapnel. "Press on," she rasped, voice steel over grief. "For them." They docked amid the chaos, Jonah's techs swarming the hub's core. Maya covered the breach, rifle hot, the air thick with ozone and alien script. Inside, servers hummed, ripe for the taking. Jonah hunched over the console, his team splicing feeds with frantic efficiency. The deepfake code waited in buffer, a tempting ghost, easy win. Vesh humiliated beyond repair. But Maya's words echoed, and as loops of council blunders loaded, drones malfunctioning, Vesh's edict backfiring into static, he hesitated. Celebrity whispered to push it, but the rush felt hollow now, the fear of irrelevance a lie. Real footage from Sargasso's sabotage leaked, genuine council agents botching a pacification, exposing their brutality raw. No fake. Sacrifice the spectacle for truth. Upload the authentic, he told his lead tech. Let the galaxy see, not imagine. The hub flooded with it, blunders spliced with human satire, memes of Vesh as a pompous glitch, Sargasso's truth hitting like a gut punch. Worlds tuned in, laughter rippling from fringe stations to core allies. The narrative cracked. Back in the Citadel, Vesh's retaliation was surgical. In the security annex, he activated the internal list, his claw tapping Lyra's name with cold precision. Counselor Sale, suspected in unauthorized data flows. Monitor and isolate. The broadcast pinged to all high ranks, a noose of implication. Lyra felt it during the next session, her console lighting up as eyes turned. Outrage was her shield. She rose, tendrils flaring in feigned fury. This is slander. My loyalty is ironclad. The chamber buzzed, Vesh's gaze lingering like a promise of chains. But beneath, she worked the shadows. Encrypted bursts. Takail Maya stared at the flickering holoscreen in the dim command deck of the UNS Vanguard, the intercept data scrolling like a death sentence. Her fingers tightened around the armrest, knuckles whitening against the worn leather. The Galactic Council's encryption had cracked under human algorithms, relentless, patient code that mimicked the Council's own bureaucratic slowness until it slipped through. Vesh Takar's orders were clear. Deploy the Ecliptic Annihilator, a planet cracker the size of a small moon, against Salus Prime. Retaliation for the youth there, broadcasting human-style parodies of council edicts. Memes of all things, crude animations of Vesh as a pompous insect, his decrees twisted into punchlines about bureaucratic constipation. The kids on Salus had latched onto Jonah's viral feeds, remixing them with their own desperate wit, and now Vesh wanted to glass the whole world to make an example. She exhaled slowly, the air tasting metallic from recycled filters. Her brother Elias was light years away on a civilian habitat, but Salus Prime felt too close. One wrong move and reprisals could chain back to Earth. Maya keyed the comms. Admiral Al-Nasser, bridge conference, now. Hakim's face appeared moments later. His salt and pepper beard framing eyes etched with old wars. The Joint Fleet Command hologram linked their ships in a tight formation, but tension hummed through the feed like static. Maya didn't waste words. Sir, intercepts confirm it. Vesh is positioning the Annihilator for Salus Prime. Firing window opens in 12 hours. Their young are sharing our broadcasts. Jonah's parodies. Vesh sees it as contagion. Hakim's jaw set, his gaze drifting to the side, where a small hollow of his late daughter flickered. A peace activist, her smile a ghost. He'd promised her no needless wars, but promises cracked under fire. Defend a non-human world with the bulk of our fleet? We're stretched thin, Rios. Earth's habitats are exposed if we commit here. Maya leaned forward, her voice steady but edged with the weight of her crew's lives. Inaction restores their terror regime, sir. We let Salus burn. Every species watches the Council win. Our deterrence crumbles. Humanity doesn't kneel. We push back or we invite the knife at our own throats. She paused, letting the moral fracture hang. Hakim wanted peace, but peace through strength meant calculated risks, not hiding. Her own fear gnawed, failing her people, watching Elias's habitat light up next. But yielding, that was surrender dressed as strategy. He rubbed his temple, the lines there deepening. You're asking me to break a vow. Overwhelm them, yes, but for aliens mocking decrees. What if this escalates to total war? It's already war, Admiral. Polite, unpredictable war. We risk the fleet or we watch the galaxy learn fear again. Maya's pulse thrummed. She saw the conflict in his eyes. The daughter's memory warring with the tactician's cold math. Finally, he nodded, voice gravel. Prep the jump, but Rios, this is on us, all of it. Across the void, in the shadowed alcoves of the Council's central spire, Lyra Sale felt the noose tighten. The session's outrage still echoed in her tendrils, Vesh's gaze a brand on her skin. Suspicion coiled around her like smoke, whispers of leaks of human sympathizers. Her console had lit up with queries, probes into her comms logs. Kale, her lover back on Salus, had received her last burst. Coordinates half sent, a desperate thread to the humans. But it wasn't enough. Vesh's plan burned in her mind. The Annihilator targeted at her homeworld. The youth there, her own niece among them, sharing those human jests like forbidden fire. Parodies that made the Council's terror seem small, laughable. Lyra's chamber was a cage of polished obsidian, the air thick with the scent of ionized fear, hers and the galaxy's. She couldn't feign loyalty forever. Her world would burn, her people reduced to ash, unless she acted. Trembling, she accessed the secure channel, the one traced back to Maya Rios's task force. Traceable, fatal. Discovery meant execution. Slow, public, her tendrils flayed for all to see. But survival without conscience, that was already death. Her fingers danced over the interface, uploading the Annihilator's coordinates, security protocols, firing sequences, raw data, unencrypted for speed. For Salus, she whispered, tendrils curling in resolve and terror. The send key glowed. She hit it, the packet vanishing into the ether. Alarms would scream soon. Vesh's hunters were thorough. But if the humans moved fast, her chest tightened, grief for Kale's surging. He'd begged her to stay silent, to preserve her position for reform. But reform was a lie when worlds cracked open. Lyra slumped, the weight of betrayal, hers, the Council's, crushing her. The die was cast. Aboard the Vanguard, Maya's console chimed, urgent red. She snatched the incoming burst, decrypting it mid-stride toward the strategy deck. Lyra Sale's seal, authentic, laced with desperation. Coordinates bloomed. The Annihilator's orbit, a hulking lattice of dark matter conduits and gravitic amplifiers, poised like a predator above Salus Prime's blue curve. Protocols followed, access codes, weak points in the control spine. A gift wrapped in suicide. Lyra, Maya murmured, respect flickering through her caution. The counselor had burned her bridges. Jonah, she called over the comms. The envoy appeared on split screen, his comedian's grin masking the strain, eyes bloodshot from endless broadcasts. We have a window, leak from inside, but the crews, they'll fire unless we break them first. Jonah nodded, leaning into his setup, a makeshift studio crammed with hollow editors and meme generators. His impulsiveness itched. This was the big stage, adoration or infamy. Got it, time to weaponize the punchline. He pulled feeds, raw footage from Sargasso's fall, human refugees mocking their captors with songs, Salus youth, tendrils waving in defiance, remixing Vesh's face onto a bumbling fool. Jonah layered it with satire, a voiceover in council trade tongue, calm and cutting. Behold the mighty Archon, guardian of stability, so stable he cracks planets to fix a bad joke. Crews of the Annihilator, ask yourselves, is this power or just a bully's tantrum? Your families watch. Choose the punchline that doesn't end in screams. He hit broadcast, piggybacking on council military nets, hacked relays from human info warfare. The signal flooded channels, unblockable, laced with viral hooks. Jonah's heart raced. One wrong quip, and it backfired. But humanity's edge was this. Laugh in the face of doom, make the tyrant squirm. Send it, Maya said, and pray it sticks. The human fleet jumped ahead of schedule, reality folding in a gut-wrenching warp. Alarms wailed as the Vanguard and her sisters, sleek, angular predators, emerged in sailless space, engines flaring against the void. Maya gripped the command rail, view screens painting the Annihilator's silhouette, a spiked behemoth, energy coils humming with planet-killing promise. Salus Prime loomed below, cities twinkling like defiant stars. "Thread the needle," Maya ordered, voice iron. "Flank formation, slip between the platform and the planet. Shields to maximum, weapons hot." Her ships danced a deadly ballet, thrusters firing in precise bursts to weave through the Annihilator's defensive grid. One miscalculation and debris would rain on Salus. Her crews vaporized. Sweat beaded on her brow. Elias's face flashed in her mind, the habitat's fragile spin, but duty anchored her. Calm, polite danger uncoiling. Council interceptors scrambled, but hesitation rippled through their ranks. Jonah's broadcast echoed in cockpits, laughter mixing with footage of youth chanting parodies. Sargasso's ghosts rising in accusation. "Refuse the order," the envoy's voice urged, laced with that human irreverence. "Mutiny isn't rebellion, it's sanity." Scattered refusals crackled over open channels, a gunnery officer on a frigate powering down, another crew abandoning posts. Fractures spread, obedience crumbling under ridicule's blade. But Vesh struck back. From the Council's war nexus, his form, tall, chitinous, eyes like voids, seized the Annihilator's remote link. Pride burned in him. These primitives' jests were insects buzzing at his throne. He overrode safeties, claws slamming protocols. The weapon's core ignited, countdown locking in. 5 minutes, irreversible. No external halt now. "Fire," he commanded, voice a glacial decree. Stability demanded this. Fear's restoration. Yet doubt flickered. The human's mockery echoed in his feeds, destabilizing the myth he'd built. Maya saw the coils brighten. The platform's spine, a vulnerable nexus of conduits, glowing target. Her fleet harried the defenses, lasers carving paths, but time bled away. "All ships evasive, we're going in." Her voice cracked the bridge silence. "Ram the spine, cripple it." But the vanguard would shatter. Crews lost, her fate a coin toss in the blast. Elias, the habitats, the galaxy's eyes. She thought of Lyra's leak, Jonah's gamble, Hakim's vow, no clean wins. "Helm, full burn, target the control spine, ramming vector." The deck shuddered as engines roared, the ship arrowing forward. Alarms screamed collision. Maya's hand steadied on the rail, resolve hardening. Humanity didn't break. It bent the universe with stubborn will. Impact loomed, fire blooming. The explosion tore the void, the Annihilator's spine crumpling in a cascade of rupturing coils. The planet cracker listed inert, its threat gutted, but the vanguard vanished in the fireball, debris scattering like accusations. Vesh's promise of reprisals crackled across channels, his voice fury veiled. The galaxy watched in stunned silence, the Council's fear tactics fracturing, not with a bang but a ridiculed whimper. Collapse loomed, or a final the medbay's hum was a dull roar in Maya's ears, like the aftershock of a hull breach that wouldn't seal. She floated in the recovery pod, her body a map of fire and frost, ribs cracked from the impact, skin seared where the escape pod's shielding had failed. The Vanguard's ramming run had been her call, a desperate calculus of lives saved against one ship's pyre. Now, as the autosurgeons peeled away charred synth flesh, she caught fragments of chatter from the attending medics. "Captain Rios, symbol of the stand. Feeds are lighting up across the nets." Her eyes cracked open to the glow of a holoscreen overhead, looping footage of the collision. The human cruiser barreling into the Council's orbital platform, a defiant spear against their vaunted enforcer. No fear in the clip, just the cold precision of her bridge commands, voice steady as the hull groaned. But the overlays, those were the knife twist. Human memes splashed across alien channels, cartoonish archons fleeing a cartoon, Maya wielding a wrench like a sword, captioned, "When the Council says, kneel, but you say, hold my beer." Laughter tracks dubbed over the explosion. She'd meant to buy time, not become this icon of irreverence. Pain lanced through her side as they extracted shrapnel. Maya clenched her jaw, tasting blood and regret. Her brother Elias was out there, on that habitat ring near Soul's Edge, where Council reprisals could hit like a shadow fleet. One wrong symbol, and he'd pay for her defiance. The war's cost wasn't abstract anymore. It was etched in her scars, binding her to every crew she'd led into the fire. She was no hero, just the woman who'd lit the match. Across the galaxy's fractured comms, Archon Vesh Takar paced the shadowed command nexus of his flagship, the Void's Grasp. The chamber's walls pulsed with feeds from a dozen sectors, each one a bleeding wound in the Council's facade. The human's ship was gone, but the platform's ruin had sparked something worse than rebellion. Mockery. Vesh's mandibles clicked in controlled fury, his exoskeletal frame rigid under the weight of his robes. "Disloyalty festers," he intoned to his aides. Voice a glacial rasp. "Root it out. Arrest the sector governors who've hesitated. Execute the first 10 mutineers publicly. Broadcast the purity of our order." The orders cascaded out. Enforcer drones swarming compliance nodes on fringe worlds. Hollow images flickered. A Zathari official dragged from his spire, pleading. A Krell enforcer's head severed mid-denial, blood arcing in low grave. Vesh watched, expecting the old fear to ripple back, to cow the masses into submission. But Jonah Park's network hijacked the streams before they could solidify. From a shadowed bunker on a neutral asteroid, Jonah leaned into his console, fingers flying across the interface. His team, a ragtag mix of human coders and alien defectors, layered the executions with satirical overlays, clownish filters on the Archon's faces, swelling orchestral scores from ancient human comedies underscoring the screams. Council's greatest hits, Fear Edition, one Chiron read, followed by split-screen comparisons to bumbling tyrants from Earth's forgotten films. "Keep it rolling," Jonah muttered, his pulse racing with that old stage adrenaline. The views spiked, billions tuning in, not in terror, but in shared derision. On a dozen worlds, protests ignited not with rage, but laughter. Crews on Council vessels hesitated at kill orders, whispers turning to open refusals. A mutiny bloomed on the Enforcer cruiser Iron Mandate, its captain broadcasting a viral clip. "If fear's your weapon, Archon, maybe try tickling next time." Alarms wailed as the ship went dark, joining the human-aligned fleets. Vesh slammed a claw into the console, cracking the display. His strategy had always been fear's unyielding blade, pacify through terror, maintain the hierarchy. But these humans turned it to farce, eroding the aura he'd built over cycles. Pride burned in his core. He would not yield to Primitive's jests. In the Council's Grand Tribunal Hall on the core world of Elisara Prime, Lyra Sale stood chained before the elevated dais, her iridescent scales dulled by the dimmed lights. The accusation hung heavy, treason for leaking platform schematics to human channels. Whispers from the gallery, fellow counselors, aides, observers from subjugated species carried the scent of schadenfreude. She could flee. A hidden shuttle waited in the underlevels, her lover's contacts ready to spirit her to safety. But as the lead inquisitor droned on about loyalty's sanctity, something fractured in her. "No, not this time." "I will not run," Lyra declared, her voice cutting through the chamber like a vibro blade. Heads turned, the Inquisitor faltered. "The Council's rule is a lie built on fear. We subjugate worlds not for stability, but because terror keeps your thrones warm. Humanity shows us another way. Defiance without chains. Truth without the whip." Gasps rippled. The live feed meant for internal edification glitched as Jonah's hack sliced in. Split screens bloomed. Lyra's unbowed stance beside reactions from the streets, Zathari crowds cheering with raised fists, Krell workers sharing memes of toppled statues, even a few Council loyalists shifting uncomfortably. "Hear her roar," one overlay quipped, with a cartoon Lyra toppling dominoes labeled Fear Empires. The tribunal erupted. Enforcers moved to silence her. But the broadcast had already escaped, fueling the mutinies. Lyra met the Inquisitor's gaze, her conscience a live wire amid the fear. Her world might burn for this, her lover endangered, but in that moment she chose the fracture over the cage. Admiral Hakim al-Nasser observed the chaos from the bridge of the UNS Unity, his fleet arrayed in a cautious blockade around key council shipyards. The old warrior's face, lined from Earth's unification scars, tightened as reports flooded in. Surrenders from 3 enforcer squadrons, their captains citing moral erosion in encrypted bursts. Hakim's vow to his late daughter echoed, no needless wars, deterrence over destruction, but opportunity clawed at him. Open channels to the surrendering flags, he ordered, his voice a measured baritone. Conditional terms, stand down weapons, an integrate underjoint command. We leave the core bureaucracy intact, no total purge. Chaos breeds worse tyrants. Negotiations unfolded in terse holoconfs, human politeness a velvet glove over steel. A Voran fleet admiral, scales quivering, accepted after seeing his own crews fracturing under Jonah's broadcasts. Your humor disarms us, he admitted grudgingly. Hakim nodded, masking his unease. Victory tasted of ash. Preserving council remnants meant risking their resurgence, but annihilation would drown the galaxy in anarchy. His fleets secured the yards, a strategic linchpin, but the cost was compromise. Humanity's dangerous edge tempered by reluctant mercy. Jonah slouched in his bunker, the glow of a dozen screens bathing his face in erratic light. The council's collapse accelerated, mutinies chaining sector to sector. Vesh's purges backfiring into spectacles of ridicule. He could keep the satire flowing indefinitely, endless jabs at the crumbling edifice, his name etched as the galaxy's jester king. The rush tempted him, that craving for the spotlight's fire. But as Lyra's denouncement looped on his main feed, cheers from interspecies crowds underscoring her words, Jonah paused. His impulsiveness had ignited this, won allies, but pure mockery left voids, power vacuums where new fears could root. He keyed a new script, pivoting the network, from punchlines to pillars, building without the boot. Broadcasts shifted to blueprints for transparent councils, memes now lampooning secrecy in all forms, calls for joint oversight bodies where species held each other accountable. It's not as fun, he admitted to his lead coder, a wry grin masking the sacrifice. No more pure provocateur. He'd trade the thrill for foundations that might endure. Friction with Maya would ease into alliance, his jokes, her tactics, forging something real. Deep in the council chamber on Elisara Prime, Vesh Takar faced the endgame. Rebels stormed the outer halls, loyalists turning coats under the weight of exposed brutalities. The air thrummed with plasma fire, the once sacrosanct dome cracking under orbital strikes from surrendered fleets. Vesh stood at the central podium, his aides fallen, pride a crumbling shield. Fear is order, he snarled into the comms, triggering the purge protocols. Automated defenses whirred to life, gas vents hissing, security fields inverting to crush intruders and allies alike. Bodies slumped, a reformist counselor gasping her last, a loyal guard convulsing in the haze. Vesh felt the chamber seal around him, his own command dooming the faithful and faithless in a final, self-inflicted cataclysm. The blast wave buckled the dome, Vesh's form vanishing in the inferno, a bloody punctuation to his doctrine. Fear had consumed its maker, leaving a vacuum where empires once cowered. Weeks blurred into recovery for Maya, her body mending under relentless physio, scars a lattice across her torso. Promoted to fleet liaison, reluctant figurehead, she oversaw the drafting in a makeshift assembly on a neutral station. Humans and aliens mingled uneasily, hashing out the new charter, clauses enshrining public scrutiny, ridicule as a safeguard against tyranny. No power above the laugh, Jonah quipped during a session, his pivot earning nods from former council worlds. Maya watched from the observation deck, the document's hollows glowing before her. Humanity had made the council a joke, their fear tactics unraveled by stubborn wit. But as the first interspecies assembly below erupted, delegates sharing memes, skewering their own leaders, from bloated bureaucrats to overzealous admirals, a new broadcast pinged her personal feed. It was Jonah's network, turned inward, a satirical skit lampooning human command structures. Maya's own ramming run, recast as a bumbling comedy of errors, with actors exaggerating her heroic scowl. Laughter echoed from the hall, crossing species lines. Her hand hovered over the share icon. Laugh along and accept it. No power, not even humanity's,